I, 52, am a widow, and for 20 years, my entire world has revolved around my son, Alex. I worked 2 jobs, sacrificed vacations, and put every spare dollar into his education and his future. So when he announced he was getting married to his girlfriend, Chloe, I was overjoyed. I thought this was the culmination of all my hard work, a chance to see him happy and settled. I wanted to help them start their life together in the best way possible. That was my first mistake. It started with the wedding plans. I had imagined a lovely, intimate ceremony close to home, where all our friends and family could celebrate with them. I had a modest savings account set aside for this exact purpose, enough for a beautiful local wedding that would leave them with a nice nest egg to start their marriage. But Chloe had other ideas. She came from a family with money, or at least the appearance of money. They lived in a large house, drove luxury cars, and belonged to the right clubs. Chloe had a vision for her wedding, and it was a world away from my simple, practical dreams. She wanted a destination wedding. In Italy, on the Amalfi Coast. She showed me glossy brochures of cliffside villas and 5-star resorts. She spoke of week-long celebrations with curated experiences for their guests. It was a fantasy, a beautiful one, but one that was so far beyond my means it felt like we were speaking different languages. I tried to gently steer them back to reality. "That looks incredible, Chloe," I said one evening, looking at a picture of a reception under a canopy of lemons. "But the cost must be astronomical. We could do something just as beautiful here for a fraction of the price." Chloe's smile tightened just a little. "This is a once-in-a-lifetime event, Amelia," she said, using my first name in a way that always felt a little dismissive. "You only get married once. It should be perfect." Alex, my sweet boy, was caught in the middle. He looked from her excited face to my worried one. "Mom, we know it's a lot to ask," he said, taking my hand. "But this is Chloe's dream. It's my dream too now, to see her that happy." I asked about her parents. Surely, if this was the standard they were accustomed to, they would be contributing. Chloe's face fell into a carefully constructed mask of disappointment. "My parents would love to help," she sighed. "But they've had a difficult few years financially. Their investments, well, it's complicated. They can't contribute anything. It's actually been very hard on them." The guilt was laid on thick. They painted a picture of her poor, struggling parents who couldn't give their only daughter the wedding she deserved. And there was me, his mother, the only one who could make their dream come true. They told me how much it would mean to them, how it would be the perfect start to their life together, how they would be forever grateful. I looked at my son's hopeful face, and my resolve crumbled. I had never been able to deny him anything. So, I did it. I went to the bank and I liquidated a significant portion of my retirement account, the money my late husband and I had painstakingly saved for my old age. It was a terrifying decision. It felt like setting fire to my own safety net. But I told myself it was worth it. It was for Alex. It was the last big gift I could ever give him. I transferred the money, a staggering sum, into a new joint account for the wedding expenses. I gave Alex the debit card and told him to make it the most beautiful wedding imaginable. The next few months were a blur of invoices and deposits. I saw charges for the Italian villa, the Michelin-starred caterer, the flights for the entire wedding party. The costs kept escalating, but every time I felt a pang of anxiety, Alex would call and tell me how happy Chloe was, how perfect everything was going to be. He promised me the best suite in the villa, with a view of the sea. "You deserve it, Mom," he said. "You made all this happen." The day of my flight finally arrived. My bags were packed, my passport was in my purse, and I was filled with a nervous excitement. This was it. I was going to see my son get married in a fairy tale setting that I had provided. I felt a swell of pride, pushing down the gnawing anxiety about my depleted savings. I was sitting in the back of a taxi, watching the familiar streets of my neighborhood blur past on the way to the airport, when my phone buzzed. It was a text from Alex. My heart leaped, expecting a sweet message, something like, "Can't wait to see you." I opened the message. The words were short, blunt, and they stopped my breath. "Mom, plans have changed. Chloe and I decided it's better if you stay home. It's for the best. We'll explain later. I read the message again. And again. It didn't make sense.
Stay home?
My mind raced, trying to find a logical explanation. Was someone sick? Was the wedding canceled? But the message didn't say that. It said it was better if I stay home. The words felt like a physical blow, knocking the air from my lungs. My hands started to shake. The taxi driver glanced at me in the rearview mirror. "Everything okay back there, ma'am?" he asked. I couldn't answer. I fumbled with my phone, my fingers feeling clumsy and numb, and I called Alex. It rang and rang, then went to voicemail. His cheerful, recorded voice felt like a cruel joke. "Hey, you've reached Alex. Leave a message." I hung up without speaking and immediately tried again. Voicemail. A cold dread began to seep into my bones. This wasn't a mistake. He was ignoring my calls. I texted him back, my thumbs trembling. "What are you talking about?" "Alex, call me right now. I'm in a taxi to the airport." A minute later, a reply came. It was just as cold and dismissive as the first. "It's complicated. Chloe's parents are here. It's just easier this way. Don't come." Chloe's parents. The ones who supposedly couldn't afford to contribute a penny. They were there, and I was being told to stay home. It was easier this way. Easier for whom? The implication was clear. My presence was a problem. An inconvenience. After everything I had done, after sacrificing my financial security for their dream, I was being uninvited from my own son's wedding. The hurt was so sharp, so profound. It felt like a betrayal that cut straight to my soul. That was the moment something inside me snapped. The hurt didn't vanish, but something else rose up to meet it. A cold, quiet fury. The taxi continued toward the airport, and I let it. I was going to find out what was going on. I am a widow. My husband, Mark, died in a car accident when Alex was just 8 years old. In the space of a single afternoon, my life partner was gone, and I became a single mother. The grief was a fog that I thought would never lift, but I had to keep going for Alex. He was my reason for getting up in the morning, my motivation for pushing through the exhaustion and the sorrow. I took on a second job, working evenings as a bookkeeper after my day job as an administrative assistant. Sleep became a luxury. I missed school plays and soccer games because I was working, and the guilt ate at me every single day. But I made sure Alex never went without. He had tutors when he struggled with math. He went on every school trip. He got a reliable used car the day he turned 16. His future was the single, guiding star of my life. Our bond was strong. He was a thoughtful, loving son. He would leave me little notes, telling me he loved me. He would make me tea when I came home late, exhausted from my second shift. We were a team. It was us against the world. When he went off to college, I was heartbroken but so incredibly proud. I had done it. I had gotten him there. I visited him every chance I got, and he always seemed happy to see me. Then he met Chloe during his senior year. When he first brought her home, I tried my best to be welcoming. She was beautiful and poised, and she came from a world so different from ours. She talked about ski trips to Aspen and summers in the Hamptons. I talked about our annual camping trip to the state park. The gap between our experiences felt like a chasm. I noticed how Alex started to change. He became more conscious of brand names, more critical of our small, cozy house. He'd make little comments like, "Chloe's parents just renovated their kitchen." It's amazing, while looking at my perfectly functional, but dated, linoleum countertops. I told myself I was being overly sensitive. I was just afraid of losing my son, a natural feeling for any mother. I tried to connect with Chloe. I invited her for lunch, just the two of us. Asked her about her life, her family, her dreams. She was polite but distant, her answers vague. She seemed to look right through me, her eyes scanning my modest living room with a faint, unreadable expression. Over the years, the snubs became more frequent, though always small enough that I could dismiss them. She would forget to invite me to a dinner with her parents. She would plan a weekend trip with Alex on Mother's Day. Alex would always apologize profusely, saying it was a misunderstanding, that Chloe was just a bit scattered. I accepted his excuses because I wanted to believe them. I didn't want to see the truth, that my son was being pulled away from me by a woman who saw me as an obstacle, an embarrassment from his past. The wedding planning should have been my final warning. Her insistence on a lavish affair I couldn't afford, the story about her struggling parents, the way they made me feel that my contribution was not a gift but an obligation. I had ignored all the red flags because I loved my son so much, and I desperately wanted to believe he loved me just as much in return. That text message, "Stay home," was not just a change of plans. It was a declaration. It was the culmination of years of quiet dismissals and subtle manipulations. It was Chloe, with Alex's compliance, telling me that I was no longer a part of his life. My money was welcome, but I was not. I paid the taxi driver and walked into the bustling airport terminal. The cheerful announcements about boarding flights and final calls felt like a mockery. I was a ghost at a feast I had paid for. I walked up to the airline self-service kiosk and typed in my confirmation number. The screen flashed an error message. "Reservation not found. Please see an agent for assistance." A wave of confusion washed over me. My ticket couldn't be gone. I had the confirmation email right here on my phone. I walked over to the check-in counter and waited in line, my heart pounding a nervous rhythm against my ribs. When it was my turn, I handed the agent my passport. "Hello," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "I'm trying to check in for the flight to Rome, but the kiosk said it couldn't find my reservation." The agent, a kind-faced woman named Brenda, typed my name into her computer. She frowned. "Amelia Thompson? I'm sorry, ma'am, but it looks like your ticket was canceled a few hours ago." "Cancel?" I repeated, the word tasting like ash. "But I didn't cancel it. There must be a mistake." "Let me see," she said, her fingers flying across the keyboard. "The cancellation was processed online. Are you sure no one else has access to your booking information?" My mind immediately went to Alex. I had forwarded him the entire itinerary, of course. "My son has the details," I said slowly. Brenda gave me a sympathetic look. "Well, that might be it. I'm sorry, but the seat has been released." "The flight is completely full," she paused, then continued typing. "I do still see 2 other passengers on this booking. An Alex Thompson and a Chloe Beaumont. Are they still confirmed?" I asked, a sick feeling growing in my stomach. "Yes, they are," she said. "In fact, it looks like their seats were upgraded to first class about an hour ago." "Ist der her?" Unblinking. Upgraded. While my ticket was being cancelled, they were being moved to the front of the plane. The sheer audacity of it was breathtaking. "Can you tell me how that was paid for?" I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. Brenda hesitated, looking uncomfortable. "Ma'am, I'm not really supposed to share payment details, but since you are the original purchaser of the tickets." "Yes, the upgrade fee was charged to the credit card ending in 4582". My credit card. The card I had given Alex for wedding emergencies. They had used my money to cancel my ticket and upgrade their own. It was a calculated act of cruelty, designed to add insult to an already devastating injury. They weren't just excluding me, they were profiting from it. They were literally flying in luxury on the money that should have paid for my seat. The agent was saying something else, something about rebooking fees and other flights, but I couldn't hear her. A white-hot rage was building inside me, burning away the shock and the grief, leaving behind something hard and sharp. I had been a fool. I had been a willing participant in my own humiliation. But not anymore. I thanked the agent, my voice a hollow echo of its former self, and walked away from the counter. I found a quiet corner in a nearly empty airport cafe, sank into a chair, and pulled out my small laptop. My hands were steady now. The shaking had stopped, replaced by a chilling sense of purpose. I logged into my online banking portal, my fingers moving with a speed and precision that surprised me. The credit card statement loaded on the screen. And there it was. The charge from the airline for 2 first-class upgrades made just over an hour ago. My eyes scanned down the list of recent transactions. My blood ran cold. It wasn't just the upgrades. There were dozens of charges I didn't recognize, stretching back for weeks. A $500 charge at a high-end boutique. A receipt confirmed it was for a designer handbag. Chloe's, I presumed. There were charges for lavish dinners at restaurants I could never afford, weekend getaways to fancy spa hotels, even a subscription to a wine of the month club. They had been using my emergency card as their personal slush fund. They weren't just paying for wedding expenses. They were funding a lifestyle of luxury on my dime, all while telling me how financially strapped Chloe's family was. The lies were piling up, one on top of the other, creating a suffocating mountain of deceit. I felt a fool, but the feeling was quickly being replaced by a steely resolve. They had mistaken my love for weakness. They had mistaken my generosity for stupidity. They had underestimated me. I pulled up the file where I had saved all the wedding-related documents. Every invoice, every contract, every email. I opened the invoice from the wedding planner in Italy. I had paid her fee in full, a hefty sum, months ago. I looked at her name, Isabella, and found her phone number. My finger hovered over the call button. What could I even ask her? I needed more information, more proof of their deception. I took a deep breath and made the call. It was early evening in Italy, and she answered on the second ring, her voice warm and professional, with a charming Italian accent. Pronto, Isabella speaking. Hello, Isabella, I said, forcing my voice to sound calm and pleasant. This is Amelia Thompson, Alex Thompson's mother. I hope I'm not disturbing you. Oh, Amelia. Not at all. It is a pleasure to hear from you, she said cheerfully. Everything is ready for the big day. The villa looks magnificent. You will be so pleased. Her words were a dagger in my heart. I'm sure it's wonderful, I said, my throat tight. I was just calling to double-check a small detail. There was a little confusion about some of the payments, and I wanted to clarify. Did Chloe's parents, the Beaumonts, end up covering any of the costs? I know they had wanted to. There was a brief pause on the other end of the line. I could almost hear the gears turning in her head as she decided how to answer. Ah, yes, she said a little too brightly. The Beaumonts were so generous. They insisted on paying for the floral arrangements and the photographer as their gift to the happy couple. A very significant contribution. I closed my eyes. The lie was confirmed. Alex and Chloe had explicitly told me her parents couldn't contribute a single dollar. But here's the planner, confirming they had paid for two of the most expensive items, a fact that had been deliberately hidden from me. Why would they hide it? The answer was sickeningly clear. They wanted me to believe I was the sole benefactor, that the entire financial burden rested on my shoulders. It was a manipulation to extract as much money from me as possible. They didn't just lie by omission. They constructed an elaborate narrative of financial hardship to prey on my love for my son. I see, I said, my voice dangerously low. Thank you for clarifying that, Isabella. That's very helpful. Of course, Amelia, she said. We are all so excited to welcome you tomorrow. Your suite has the most breathtaking view. I'm sure it does, I said, and ended the call. My suite. The one Alex had promised me. The one I had paid a premium for. A sudden, chilling thought occurred to me. If they were willing to lie about the finances and cancel my flight, what else were they capable of? I looked up the number for the Villa d'Este, the exclusive resort where the wedding was being held. My fingers trembled slightly as I dialed. This time, I wasn't just suspicious. I was certain I wouldn't like what I was about to find out. The call connected to a polite concierge. I gave him my name and asked him to confirm my reservation for the Ocean View Grand Suite. "One moment, please, madam," he said. I heard the soft clicking of a keyboard in the background. My heart was hammering against my ribs. He came back on the line after a long pause. "My apologies, madam," he said, his tone formal. "I do see your name here, but your room has been changed. You are now in a standard room in our annex building." "The annex building?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "I booked the grand suite. I have the confirmation right here." "Yes, madam, I see that," the concierge said, sounding uncomfortable. The change was made last week by the bride, Miss Beaumont. She requested that the grand suite be assigned to her parents, Mr. and Mrs. Beaumont. She said you preferred a quieter room away from the main festivities. Quieter room. He meant the cheapest room, stuck in the back of the property, probably overlooking the dumpsters. They had not only uninvited me, not only used my money to upgrade their own flights, but they had also taken the luxurious suite I had paid for and given it to her parents. My replacement. And they had relegated me to the worst room in the resort, a final, petty act of humiliation. They were systematically erasing me from the event I had single-handedly funded, while simultaneously installing her family in my place. The cruelty of it was breathtaking. It was a meticulous, calculated plan to take everything from me: my money, my dignity, and my son. The concierge was still talking, offering apologies and explanations, but I didn't hear him. I hung up the phone. The rage that had been simmering inside me now erupted into a blazing inferno. The hurt was still there, a deep, aching wound in my chest, but the fire of my anger was stronger. It burned away the tears, the self-pity, the grief. All that was left was a cold, hard certainty. They had started a war. They just didn't realize I was the one with all the ammunition. I sat there in the airport cafe for a long time, the world buzzing around me, unseen and unheard. I was no longer a grieving mother. I was a woman who had been pushed too far. They thought I would just quietly disappear, that I would swallow the hurt and the humiliation and let them have their perfect, motherless wedding. They thought my love for Alex was a weakness they could exploit indefinitely. They were wrong. My love for my son was the reason I had sacrificed everything. But the woman they had created through their lies and their cruelty was someone they wouldn't recognize. Someone who was done sacrificing. I called the one person I knew would understand, the one person who had been skeptical of Chloe from the very beginning, my sister, Sarah. She answered on the first ring. "Amelia? Are you at the airport? Did you get on the plane okay?" My voice broke as I started to speak. "Sarah," I sobbed, the tears I had been holding back finally breaking free. "They told me not to come." I told her everything. The text message from Alex. The canceled flight. The first-class upgrades on my credit card. The lies about Chloe's parents' contribution. And the final, crushing blow of the hotel suite. I poured out the whole sordid story, my words punctuated by gasps and sobs. Sarah listened patiently, her silence on the other end of the line a comforting presence. When I finished, she didn't offer platitudes or empty reassurances. Her voice was laced with a fury that matched my own. "That little witch," she hissed. "This has Chloe's fingerprints all over it. I knew she was a piece of work from the moment I met her. And Alex. How could he let her do this to you? After everything you've done for him?" "I don't know," I whispered, wiping my eyes with a flimsy napkin. "I don't recognize him anymore." "This isn't just a misunderstanding, Amelia," Sarah said, her voice firm. "This was a plan. They wanted your money, but they were embarrassed by you. They wanted to present this perfect, wealthy front to all their friends, and a middle-class mom who worked 2 jobs to raise her son didn't fit into their picture." Hearing her say it out loud made it devastatingly real. It was the truth I had been avoiding for years. I was not good enough for their new life. "What do I do, Sarah?" I asked, feeling lost. "They have everything. They're on their way to Italy to the wedding I paid for, and I'm stuck here." "No," Sarah said, her voice hardening. "They don't have everything. You do. You paid for it all, right? You have the receipts. You have the power here, Amelia. You just have to decide how you're going to use it." Her words sparked something in me. She was right. I wasn't powerless. I was the one holding all the cards. I had been so focused on the betrayal that I hadn't considered the leverage I possessed. My mind started to work, the gears shifting from grief to strategy. I thought about the wedding website. A few weeks ago, Alex had given me the admin password so I could help upload some old family photos for a slideshow. He probably thought it was a sweet, sentimental gesture. Now it was about to become my greatest weapon. "You're right," I said, my voice gaining strength. "Thank you, Sarah. I need to go." I have some things to take care of. What are you going to do? She asked, a hint of nervous excitement in her voice. I'm going to give them the wedding they deserve, I replied, a grim smile touching my lips for the first time that day. I hung up and immediately opened my laptop again. I found the link to the wedding website and entered the login credentials. I was in. The site was a monument to their vanity, filled with professionally shot engagement photos and gushing testimonials about their love story. I ignored all of it and clicked on the Planning Tools section. A dashboard opened up, revealing every detail of the event: the guest list, the seating chart, the vendor contracts, and a message board between Chloe and the wedding planner. My eyes scanned the page, and then I saw it. A series of notes and messages that laid their entire, malicious plan bare. My blood ran cold as I read a message from Chloe to Isabella, the planner, sent 2 weeks prior. Isabella, we need to make a change to the seating chart. Please move my mother-in-law, Amelia Thompson, to table 12. It's the one at the very back, near the kitchen entrance. Also, please confirm that her hotel room has been moved to the annex building. We want to ensure the main villa is just for our closest family and friends. Closest family and friends. I was being relegated to the service entrance, both literally and figuratively. This wasn't a last-minute decision as Alex's text had implied. This had been their intention all along. They had planned to let me fly all the way to Italy, only to humiliate me, to seat me by the kitchens like a hired hand. The text message telling me to stay home wasn't a sudden change of heart. It was their final, cowardly act, likely because they feared I might actually make a scene if they subjected me to that kind of disrespect in person. They preferred to discard me from a distance. I scrolled further, my heart pounding with a mixture of horror and vindication. I found the financial planning section. It was a detailed spreadsheet of all the wedding costs. And right there, in a column marked Contributions, was a large sum next to the name Beaumont Family, designated for florals/photography. The proof was undeniable. They had lied about everything. They had orchestrated a campaign of deception to milk me for every penny I had, all while planning to cast me aside at the end. The full, ugly truth was laid out before me on the screen. They didn't just want a wedding without me. They wanted a wedding funded by me, but presented to the world as a product of their own and Chloe's family's wealth and taste. My presence would have shattered that illusion. I was the inconvenient truth, the working-class mother who didn't fit into the glamorous narrative they were selling. My role was simple: to be their silent, invisible bank. And once the funds were secured, my role was over. I took a screenshot of Chloe's message about the seating chart and the hotel room. I took a screenshot of the financial spreadsheet showing her parents' contribution. I saved the text messages from Alex. I saved the credit card statement showing the unauthorized charges and the first-class upgrades. I gathered my evidence, piece by piece, building a case against them. Each screenshot felt like a small act of reclamation, a piece of my dignity being restored. They had left a digital trail of their cruelty, confident that I would never find it. They had underestimated my intelligence, just as they had underestimated my strength. I looked at the flight information on the airline's website. Their flight was scheduled to depart in less than 2 hours. They would be arriving at the airport soon, giddy with excitement, ready to board the flight to their dream wedding, blissfully unaware that their dream was about to turn into a nightmare. And I was going to be the one to wake them up. I closed my laptop and packed it away. I stood up, my back straight, my head held high. I walked out of the cafe and back toward the airline's check-in counter. I was no longer a victim. I was an agent of consequence. Brenda, the kindly agent, was still there. She saw me approaching and gave me a small, sad smile. "Did you manage to find another flight?" she asked. "No," I said, my voice calm and even. "I need to make a change to an existing reservation. The one for Alex Thompson and Chloe Beaumont." Brenda looked surprised. "A change? What kind of change?" "I am the primary cardholder who paid for these tickets," I stated clearly. "That gives me the authority to alter the booking, correct?" She consulted her screen. "Yes, that's correct. As the purchaser, you can make changes." "Excellent," I said. I leaned forward slightly, my eyes locking onto hers. I would like to downgrade their tickets. From first class to economy. Brenda's eyes widened. She stared at me for a moment, a flicker of understanding in her expression. She had seen countless family dramas play out at her counter, but this was clearly a new one. She turned back to her computer and typed for a few moments. A seating chart of the airplane appeared on her screen. "The flight is very full," she said, her voice neutral. "There are only a few seats left in economy." "Show me the worst ones you have," I said without a trace of hesitation. She pointed to the very back of the plane on her screen. "There are 2 middle seats here in the last row, right next to the lavatories." A slow, grim smile spread across my face. It was perfect. A fitting tribute to where they had planned to seat me at their wedding reception. "Those will do just fine," I said. "Please put Alex Thompson in seat 42E and Chloe Beaumont in 42F. Brenda worked her keyboard, and I watched as their names were moved from the luxurious pods at the front of the plane to the cramped, undesirable seats at the very back. A small, but deeply satisfying, wave of justice washed over me. "Is there anything else?" Brenda asked, her professional demeanor barely concealing her fascination with the unfolding drama. "Yes," I said. "Please cancel my original ticket for a full travel credit. I won't be flying to Italy today, but I knew, with absolute certainty, that I would go one day. On my own terms." I thanked Brenda and walked away, my steps feeling lighter than they had all day. I found a seat with a clear view of the security checkpoint for their gate, and I waited. I knew they would have to come this way. I wanted to be there, not to see them, but to be a silent witness to the first domino falling. About 40 minutes later, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I ignored it. Then a text came through from the same number. "Amelia, it's Margaret Beaumont, Chloe's mother. We need to speak with you urgently." I ignored that too. The frantic calls and texts started to pour in, from Chloe's mother, then her father, then from Alex. I let them all go to voicemail. I imagined their confusion turning to panic as they stood at the first-class check-in, only to be told their names were not on the list. Finally, just as the flight was scheduled to begin boarding, a call came from Alex. This time, I answered. I held the phone to my ear, my heart beating a steady, determined rhythm. "Mom, what did you do?" he yelled into the phone, his voice tight with panic and rage. I could hear Chloe wailing dramatically in the background. "They're telling us our first-class tickets are gone. They said we've been moved to economy." I let a moment of silence hang in the air before I replied, my voice as cool and detached as his text message had been. "Yes, Alex," I said. "I made a change. Plans have changed. I decided it's for the best. We'll explain later." I threw his own heartless words back at him. The effect was immediate. He sputtered, momentarily speechless.
"What?"
"This isn't funny, Mom. Fix it. Chloe is freaking out. Her parents are already on the plane. They're waiting for us in first class." "Oh, are they?" I said, my voice dripping with false sweetness. "How nice for them. I hope they're comfortable. Did you use my credit card for their tickets too, or did they manage to cover that on their own?" The line went quiet for a second. I had hit a nerve. In the background, I heard Chloe shriek, "Tell her to fix it right now. She is ruining my wedding." I listened to her screeching, and I felt nothing but contempt. "Alex," I said, my voice dropping to a low, serious tone. "Listen to me very carefully. You and Chloe are getting on that airplane because I am allowing you to. You will fly to Italy in the seats that I have chosen for you. They are in the last row, next to the bathrooms. I thought that would be fitting." "Mom, you can't do this," he pleaded, his anger giving way to desperation. "I can," I said simply. "And I have. This is just the beginning. When you land in Italy, you will find some other changes have been made. Have a wonderful flight, sweetheart." Before he could respond, I hung up the phone. I then blocked his number. I blocked Chloe's number. I blocked her parents' numbers. I sat there for another 10 minutes, watching the departure board. The flight to Rome changed from boarding to final call, and then to gate close. They were on the plane. trapped in a metal tube for the next 9 hours, with nowhere to go and no one to call. The image of Chloe, the princess, and my spineless son, squeezed into middle seats by the lavatories, gave me a grim, satisfying pleasure. But I was just getting started. Phase 1 was complete. Now it was time for Phase 2. While they were 30,000 feet in the air, somewhere over the Atlantic Ocean, with no access to Wi-Fi and no way to interfere, I got to work. I pulled my laptop out again, this time at a table in a quiet restaurant overlooking the runways. I ordered a glass of expensive champagne with the money I was about to save. It felt appropriate. My first call was to Isabella, the wedding planner in Italy. "Isabella, it's Amelia Thompson again," I said when she answered. "Amelia, I was just thinking of you," she said warmly. "I trust you are on your way." "Actually, no," I said, my tone all business now. "There has been a serious issue. I am canceling the wedding." There was a stunned silence on the other end. "Canceling? But everything is ready. The guests are arriving tomorrow. What has happened?" "What has happened," I said, my voice cold as ice, "is that I've discovered I am the victim of fraud. My son and his fiancée have manipulated me into paying for this entire event under false pretenses. They have been using my credit cards for personal expenses and have engaged in a pattern of deception that I can no longer tolerate." "Fraud," she stammered. I don't understand." "Let me make it very clear for you," I said. I attached a file to an email and sent it to her as we spoke. "I am sending you an email right now. It contains a screenshot of a message from Chloe to you, instructing you to move me to a table by the kitchen and to a substandard room in the annex. It also contains proof that her parents, who I was told were destitute, made a significant financial contribution that was deliberately hidden from me. This entire event was planned to humiliate me after taking all of my money. I am the sole financier of this wedding, and I am pulling my funding, effective immediately." I could hear her sharp intake of breath as she likely opened the email. "Oh my," she whispered. I had no idea." "I'm sure you didn't," I said. "But now you do. I am instructing you to cancel every single vendor. The caterer, the florist, the band, the photographer, the officiant. Everything. Inform them that the contract has been breached due to fraudulent misrepresentation by the bride and groom. I expect a full refund of all my deposits to be credited back to my card within 48 hours. If there are any issues, I will be forwarding this entire file to my lawyer." The threat of legal action, especially with the evidence I provided, worked like a charm. The planner, likely fearing for her own reputation and potential liability, immediately became my ally. "Yes, of course, Mrs. Thompson," she said, her voice now filled with a new, respectful deference. "I will handle it immediately. I am so terribly sorry this has happened to you. I appreciate your cooperation," I said and hung up. One down. My next call was to the Villa D'Este. I asked to speak to the events manager. I explained the situation in the same calm, factual manner. I was the cardholder who had booked and paid for the entire block of 20 rooms for the wedding party, as well as the reception venue on the terrace. I was canceling all of it. "Madam, I am afraid it is too late to cancel without penalty," the manager said stiffly. "Our policy requires 30 days' notice." "And my policy," I replied, "is to initiate a fraud investigation and a chargeback on the nearly $100,000 I have paid to your resort if you do not cooperate. I have written proof that the event was booked under fraudulent pretenses. I can have my bank claw back every single cent. Or you can cancel the bookings, keep a reasonable one-night deposit for your trouble, and we can consider the matter closed. The choice is yours." There was a long pause. I knew a chargeback of that magnitude would be a massive headache for them, one they would likely lose given my evidence. "Let me see what I can do," he said finally. He put me on hold. A few minutes later, he returned, his voice significantly more conciliatory. "Very well, madam. We will cancel the event and the room block. We will refund your payments, less the deposit fee as you suggested." "Thank you," I said. "However, I would like to keep one reservation active." "Oh," he asked, surprised. "Which one?" The small, standard room in the annex building, I said. The one near the service entrance. Please put it under the name of Alex and Chloe Thompson. They will be arriving tomorrow. I could almost hear the manager's smirk over the phone. Consider it done, madam. My final act was to leave a message for them with the concierge. I asked him to write it on a simple card and place it on the pillow in their new, humble room. The message was short, but I felt it captured the sentiment perfectly. Welcome to Italy. This is all that's left. Hope it was worth it. I leaned back in my chair and took a long, slow sip of my champagne. The bubbles tickled my nose. Outside, planes were taking off, soaring into the sky. I felt a profound sense of release, of power reclaimed. They were flying towards their dream, completely unaware that I had already turned it to dust. The wedding was gone. The luxurious villa was gone. The adoring guests who were about to arrive would be met with a cancelled event. All that was waiting for them was a tiny room by the dumpsters and a note for me. The consequences of their actions were waiting for them at the end of their 9-hour flight, and I was going to enjoy every single minute of their discovery. The next 24 hours were a storm of communication, which I observed with the detached calm of a meteorologist watching a hurricane from a satellite. My phone, which I had unblocked for the sheer satisfaction of it, began to light up with calls and texts from numbers I didn't recognize. These were the wedding guests, arriving in Italy to find their hotel reservations canceled and no wedding to attend. Their confused and angry messages were a testament to the chaos I had unleashed. Then the main event, a series of frantic, desperate calls from Alex and Chloe, who had clearly landed and discovered the full extent of the devastation. I didn't answer. I listened to the voicemails, savoring each one like a fine wine. The first was from Alex, his voice trembling with disbelief.
Mom, what happened?
We got to the hotel. They said everything is canceled. The wedding planner won't answer our calls. The guests are calling us screaming. What did you do? Mom, please call me back. This is a nightmare. The next was from Chloe, a hysterical, shrieking message that was barely coherent. You monster. You have ruined my life. My parents are stranded. Everyone hates me. I will sue you for this. You will pay. You will pay. Then came a call from a number I recognized as belonging to Chloe's father, Richard Beaumont. I decided to answer this one. Amelia, he said, his voice a low growl of controlled fury. You have made a very serious mistake. I am a lawyer, and I can assure you that you will be hearing from my firm. What you have done is malicious, vindictive, and constitutes a breach of contract. You will be held liable for all financial damages. I let him finish his tirade. When he was done, I took a deep breath. Richard, I said, my voice as calm as a frozen lake. Let me be very clear with you. The only mistake I made was trusting your daughter and my son. I have documentation of every single thing they did. I have proof that you and your wife were not, in fact, financially destitute as they claimed. I have it in writing from the wedding planner that you paid for the flowers and the photographer. I have Chloe's written instructions to humiliate me by seating me next to a kitchen. I have credit card statements detailing thousands of dollars of personal expenses they charged without my permission. And I have the text message from my son, telling me that I was not welcome at the wedding that I paid for. I paused to let that sink in. So, you are welcome to sue me, I continued. I would be more than happy to present all of this evidence in a court of law. It will all become a matter of public record. Your daughter's reputation, your family's reputation, it will all be laid bare for the world to see. Imagine the headlines, Richard. Wealthy family manipulates working-class mother out of her retirement savings to fund lavish wedding, then uninvites her. How do you think that will play out for you? Your daughter's reputation is in your hands. So please go ahead. Make my day. The silence on the other end of the line was the most satisfying sound I had ever heard. I could picture him standing in the lobby of the Italian villa, his face turning purple with rage and impotence. He knew I had him. He knew I was right. After a long, tense moment, he hung up without another word. I never heard from him or his law firm again. The fallout was spectacular. My sister, Sarah, called me after I forwarded her the best of the voicemails. She was laughing so hard she could barely breathe. "Oh my God, Amelia. You are my absolute hero," she gasped. The one from Chloe screaming. I'm going to make it my ringtone. Her laughter was infectious, and for the first time, I found myself laughing too. It was a laugh of pure, unadulterated relief and vindication. A few days later, my cousin Carol called. She had been invited to the wedding and had just gotten back from her wasted trip to Italy. "Amelia, what on earth happened?" she asked. We all got there, and the hotel said the wedding was off. Alex and Chloe were nowhere to be found. Her parents were running around like headless chickens. It was chaos. There are some crazy rumors flying around. I decided it was time for the truth to come out. I told her everything, from beginning to end. I didn't spare a single detail. Carol was horrified. "I can't believe it," she said, aghast. "After all you've done for that boy. And that girl. What a snake." As I knew she would, Carol told the rest of the family. The story spread like wildfire. The initial sympathy for Alex and Chloe quickly curdled into disgust and condemnation. They became pariahs. No one could believe their audacity and cruelty. I received dozens of calls and messages from family members, all expressing their support for me and their shock at my son's behavior. I learned from my cousin that Alex and Chloe had a spectacular, screaming fight in the airport in Rome when they realized there was no money left and no wedding to be had. Her parents, furious at the public humiliation, apparently blamed Alex for not being able to control his mother. Alex and Chloe flew back to the States 2 days later, on separate flights. About a month passed. I spent the time rebuilding. I worked with my bank to dispute the fraudulent charges on my credit card. With the evidence I had, they were all reversed. The refunds from the wedding vendors started pouring in. My retirement account, while still wounded, was slowly being replenished. I felt like I was breathing fresh air for the first time in years, free from the suffocating weight of their expectations and manipulations. Then, one evening, I received a text from an unknown number. "It's Alex. Please don't block me. I need to talk to you." I stared at the message, my heart giving a painful lurch. A part of me, the mother who had loved him for 28 years, wanted to respond. But the woman he and Chloe had tried to destroy knew better. I didn't reply. A few minutes later, another text came through. "You ruined my life." The words were meant to be a dagger, a final attempt to wound me with guilt. But they had no effect. The old me, the woman who would have done anything to assuage his pain, was gone. I typed out a reply, my fingers steady and sure. "No, Alex," I wrote. "I didn't ruin your life. I just stopped paying for the one you and Chloe invented." Then I blocked his number for the last time. I felt a sense of closure, a final severing of a tie that had become toxic. He had made his choice. He had chosen Chloe and her world of deceit and appearances over me, and he would have to live with the consequences of that choice. The next day, I used the generous travel credit I had received from the airline. I booked 2 first-class, no expense spared tickets to Italy. One for me and one for my sister, Sarah. We would go to the Amalfi Coast. We would stay in the grand suite with the ocean view at the Villa d'Este. We would drink champagne on the terrace where the wedding was supposed to be. We would celebrate my freedom. As I clicked confirm on the booking, I smiled. I had spent my entire adult life building a future for my son. I had poured all of my resources, my energy, and my love into him. Now it was finally time to build a future for myself. Alex and Chloe had wanted a fairy tale wedding. They had gotten a cautionary tale instead. They had learned what it feels like to have everything taken away in an instant. They had finally learned what it feels like to be told they are not welcome. And in the end, their cruelest lesson was my greatest liberation.